August 7th, 1942, under the heavy cover of a misty dawn, a massive naval armada loomed silently off the coast of the Solomon Islands. For months, the Imperial Japanese Army had marched unchecked across Southeast Asia and the Pacific, appearing completely invincible. But on this fateful morning, the silence was shattered as thousands of United States Marines stormed the tropical beaches of Guadalcanal. This was a historic milestone, the very first major Allied offensive launched against the Japanese Empire during World War II. The landings caught the Japanese defenders completely by surprise, allowing the Marines to quickly establish a beachhead. However, what military planners initially expected to be a swift, straightforward operation quickly transformed into months of brutal, grinding attrition that would ultimately decide the fate of the entire Pacific theater. Guadalcanal was no longer just an island on a map. It became a colossal, multi-domain arena where the industrial might and raw willpower of two global empires clashed head-on, marking the definitive moment where the Allies stopped retreating and began their long, bloody march toward Tokyo. Why this remote, malaria-ridden island in the South Pacific became the epicenter of a global conflict, we must analyze the profound strategic necessity behind the invasion. The entire battle revolved around a single, unfinished landing strip carved into the island's tall grass, Henderson Field. Earlier in 1942, Allied reconnaissance discovered that the Japanese were building a major military airfield on Guadalcanal. The strategic implications were terrifying. If the Japanese could operate long-range bombers from this location, they could completely cut off the vital sea lanes between the United States and Australia, effectively isolating Australia and leaving it vulnerable to invasion. Australia would be neutralized as a launching pad for future Allied counterattacks. The Marines successfully captured the airstrip within the first 24 hours and named it Henderson Field, honoring a Marine aviator killed at the Battle of Midway. But capturing it was the easy part. Holding it became an absolute nightmare. For months, a desperate, severely outnumbered force of Allied soldiers defended this single airfield against relentless waves of Japanese counteroffensives from land, sea, and air. The surrounding waters became so clogged with sunken warships from both sides that it earned the grim nickname Iron Bottom Sound. Controlling Henderson Field meant controlling the skies above the Solomon Islands, and whoever controlled those skies would control the fate of the Pacific War. Guadalcanal introduced Allied forces to a new, nightmarish reality of modern combat, one that redefined the psychological limits of the human soldier. The enemy was not just the deeply entrenched Japanese military, but the environment itself. The dense, suffocating jungles of the Solomon Islands were a living hell. Troops operated in constant humidity, trekking through deep, putrid mud and razor-sharp elephant grass. Tropical diseases tore through the ranks far more effectively than enemy bullets. Malaria, dengue fever, and severe dysentery laid low thousands of men, leaving soldiers physically exhausted and shivering with fever. Rations were dangerously low, forcing the men to survive on captured Japanese rice. Compounding this physical misery was a profound sense of isolation. Following devastating naval defeats early in the campaign, Allied warships were temporarily forced to withdraw, leaving the Marines stranded on the island with minimal supplies and ammunition. At night, the jungle came alive with terrifying psychological warfare. Under the cover of total darkness, Japanese forces launched fanatical Banzai charges, leading to brutal, chaotic, close-quarters hand-to-hand fighting, where bayonets and combat knives were the weapons of choice. The sheer ferocity of these nocturnal battles left a permanent psychological scar on the survivors, establishing Guadalcanal as the definitive archetype for the horrors of jungle combat in the Pacific theater. When the brutal 6-month campaign finally ended in February 1943 with a total Japanese evacuation, Guadalcanal had completely shattered the myth of Japanese invincibility. It proved conclusively to the world that the imperial military could be systematically stopped, worn down, and decisively pushed back. The hard-won victory provided the Allied High Command with invaluable lessons. Guadalcanal served as the rough, bloody blueprint for the famous island-hopping strategy that would define the rest of the Pacific War. Allied planners realized they did not need to conquer every heavily fortified Japanese stronghold in the ocean. Instead, they could bypass major enemy bases, seize strategic islands with airfields, and leave the remaining Japanese forces to wither on the vine, cut off from supply lines. This highly sophisticated strategy allowed the Allies to steadily advance across the vast expanse of the Pacific, rapidly building the momentum that would eventually bring the war directly to the Japanese home islands by 1945. The Battle of Guadalcanal was far more than a territorial victory. It was the ultimate, unforgiving proving ground for the Allied forces and a turning point in human history. It was an extraordinary testament to human endurance, sacrifice, and the raw courage of the men who fought and died in the muddy depths of the jungle. Looking back at this monumental campaign, we are forced to confront the complex mathematics of war. How do you assess the balance between the immense strategic value of a single location, like Henderson Field, and the catastrophic human cost required to secure it? Was there a more efficient path to victory, or was this brutal war of attrition an inevitable price that had to be paid to turn the tide against tyranny? We want to hear your insights, perspectives, and historical analysis. Please share your thoughts on the legacy of the Pacific War in the comments section below. If you found this comprehensive, deep dive into World War II history valuable, please hit the like button, share this video with fellow history buffs, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you'll join our community for regular, immersive journeys into the powerful stories, military strategies, and world-changing conflicts that have shaped our global history. Thank you so much for watching. Keep honoring the sacrifices of the past, and we will see you in the next chapter of history.